Hey, what's up, guys? We're looking at a game tonight on Sunday Night Football between the New York Giants and the Buffalo Bills. It's a 43.5 point total with the Buffalo Bills favored by 15.5 points. It's going to be an ugly game. We're stuck watching the Giants again in prime time. I don't know how we got so many games with the Giants in prime time. I think a lot of it has to do with their fluky season last year, winning a bunch of easy games, and Brian Daboll somehow winning Coach of the Year over Kyle Shanahan. But that's a subject for a different show. We will take a look at the best way to approach this game from a DraftKings Showdown perspective and figure out which of these Giants we need to get in our lineups. I got some ideas on directions that we can go there and directions where we can get different on captain on the Buffalo side, at least somewhat different on the Buffalo side. So stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Simon Edwards at Pumacom with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. And this is a show where we like to try to build lineups where we're competing with 20% of the field as opposed to 80% of the field. And today's matchup is between the Buffalo Bills and the New York Giants. 43.5 point total, as I mentioned at the top, with the Buffalo Bills as heavy favorites in this one. They are 15.5 point favorites. We got two teams that are banged up. The Buffalo's defense is banged up, and the New York Giants offense is banged up. The New York Giants offensive line is about on its sixth iteration of the season, and they are without Daniel Jones tonight. We're looking at a Tyrod Taylor led team tonight. So a lot of things in the negative for the Giants. One thing that's promising is Saquon Barkley's status. He's a game time decision, and he's on the favorable side of a game time decision, which is good. And that's about all they got going for them. They also have WAN'DALE Robinson popped up on the injury report at some point during the week, but it looks like he's going to be good to go. And other than that, on the Bills offense side, we're looking at Dawson Knox, who's questionable, Dalton Kincaid, who's more questionable, and they look like they might be without cornerback Dane Jackson. He's questionable, but as far as out, Matt Milano is out. That's a big thing for the Giants. Tre'Davious White is out. That's a big thing for the Giants too, but the Giants don't have the offensive line to make it matter. They're not going to have enough time to throw the ball tonight. So we're going to take a look at those matchups specifically and see what we can target there to give us some fantasy goodness. Make sure you subscribe to this page, subscribe to our YouTube page, subscribe to our X page at Heat Seeker Sports. Make sure you hit like on this video. If I get 15 likes, I'll put out a video later on with narrowing down my core plays in this game. I just pretty much nailed the core plays in the London game. I had Justin Tucker. I had Lamar Jackson. That's an easy one. I had Zay Flowers. Wanted him as a captain. He didn't quite get there, but he got close. And then I had DeAndre Hopkins. I needed to have Derrick Henry over DeAndre Hopkins, and that would have shipped a lot of money. But we made money regardless. And if you watch that show, you made money. And Spread and I nailed the game script on that one. And I'm going to try to do the same on this game. And, it's really not much to nail. It's looking like a blowout by Buffalo over New York. They're playing in Buffalo, another strike against New York. New York has not looked like an NFL team. They've looked awful all season long. And because of what they did last year, it looks like we're just going to keep getting these Giants games in prime time. I'm not sure how many more we have left, but hopefully not many. But we'll dig into this game regardless because we're trying to make money no matter who the teams are. So let's take a look at this player pool. We're looking at Saquon Barkley. He's on the right side of questionable. Josh Allen, I think, speaks for himself. We all know that Josh Allen is a good play. Only thing with Josh Allen in this game is how quickly they're going to abandon throwing the ball. Josh Allen hasn't been running as much as he has in his career. Like, this is his lowest rushing output of his career, rushing yards per game. As far as fantasy points, though, 31.76, 39.5, 22.32, 23.66, and 13. So he's a monster. He's a monster in the fantasy world. And he's going to be a guy that we want to keep in our player pool, but we can consider putting Diggs in over him if we need to. So Diggs, another guy who's having a monster year. He's another guy who's going to be Gamescript dependent. It's going to depend on how quickly Buffalo abandons the pass, and they tend to head to the running game when they score enough points to take a big enough lead. So it's going to depend on how quickly they take that lead and how quickly they want to, slow things down. But as far as Diggs, he's got 28 points, 39 points, 22 points, 13.6 points, and 29. He's been a beast. If you're drafted him in best ball, you're very happy. Saquon Barkley's on the right side of questionable. He scored 27 points in his last game. His last game was week 2, so he's been out for a few weeks. So he's going to have some rust. He's got a high ankle sprain on top of it, so he's recovering from that. That's never easy to come back from, especially if you need your ankles like he does. So Saquon Barkley, he's got a good matchup. As far as the Bills, they allow one of the most yards after contact to running backs, and that sets up Barkley, a guy who's an explosive runner, pretty well. It just depends on how healthy he's going to be, what kind of limitations he's going to have. That's something that we need to keep an eye on the reports for, because Barkley is going to be super dependent on how much work he can get. So we need to find out what that's going to be like today. So keep your eye on the news with Saquon Barkley. And we still need him to play too. We need him to be confirmed in still. So Tyrod Taylor, he is way too expensive. He's at 9,400, way too expensive for a backup quarterback. And even, like a starting quarterback, like Daniel Jones might be cheaper in a slate like this, and I still wouldn't want to start him. So Tyrod Taylor, just an awful salary there, but he does have, running upside, which is obvious. James Cook is a guy that I'm interested in. James Cook is looking like he's going to be the third most owned guy on Buffalo's side. And the way that New York Giants are allowing explosive plays to our favor with James Cook, because the knock on James Cook is he's not getting any red zone carries. It's all going to Latavius Murray and Damian Harris. But you put James Cook in a matchup where he can break out like these 20-yard runs. All he needs to do is bust loose on a couple of these runs and score a couple long touchdowns, and all of a sudden you got a recipe for James Cook and the captain. And James Cook, scoring those early touchdowns, taking that early lead is going to take the passing game out of it. It's going to take the passing game out. And when you take the passing game out, it's going to jeopardize Josh Allen's status in this game too, like from a DraftKings raw points perspective. But I think you're going to want to have either Josh Allen or Stephon Diggs in every lineup regardless. And I would pair them with one or the other with James Cook. I like James Cook as a captain tonight. We'll get into that when we do a James Cook build. Gabe Davis. Gabe Davis is in a situation where he's been pretty hot like the last few games. But Gabe Davis is a boomer bust type of guy. And he scored 25 points last week, 15 points the week before that, 10 the week before that, 21 the week before that. He's been you got a decent amount of targets last week against Jacksonville, but it was a competitive game. When they blew out Miami, he only got 3 targets. That's something that we can look at, that Miami game, to kind of get some tea leaves here. And then 4 targets, 7 targets, 4 targets. I would look for him to be under 5 targets in this game with this game script. So keep that in mind with Gabe Davis, but he's not a guy that I'm writing off, especially if it's a lineup where I don't have Stephon Diggs in it. Darren Waller. Waller is another guy who should benefit from Matt Milano being out. These short passing guys are the guys that I want to be interested in on the New York side, and that's because the Buffalo defense does not allow like quick deep passes very often to opposing passing games. They are more the type of, I don't know what's going on with my computer. They are more the type of team that like is going to defend the deep pass long. Well, they're going to put a lot of pressure on the quarterback and not give him very much time to throw, and that favors guys like Darren Waller. It favors guys like Saquon Barkley, getting those dump offs, and it favors guys like WAN'DALE Robinson, who we'll get to in a second. We got the Bills defense. Bills defense is 6,600 tonight, so they have to get a lot for that to be worth it. Bills defense, what have they done? 9-9, 32, 10, 5. So they've done pretty well. But if you figure you're getting 10 points out of the Bills D, like maybe 12 points. I mean, Bills D is like the type of play that you want to have either in the captain, you want to go all in, or like you want to just consider going a different direction just because their price is 6,600. I may change my mind on that when we're building lineups, but at first glance, seeing the 6,600 defense, that rarely is going to pay off. Isaiah Hodgins has not been very active in this passing game. 2 targets, 3 targets, 1 target, 5 target, 3 targets, and he's got a tough matchup. Not looking too hard at Isaiah Hodgins tonight. Get past these quarterbacks. Matt Breida is in an interesting situation because Saquon Barkley is banged up, and then we also got Gary Brightwell, who we don't know the status of Gary Brightwell. He's another questionable guy on the Giants side. We got a lot of questionable guys on the Giants side, so keep an eye on those statuses. But Matt Breida, he's about in the same situation as Saquon Barkley. He could potentially get those dump offs. He had 1 target, 5 targets, 3 targets. Those were with Barkley out of the lineup. If Barkley is limited tonight, that makes Breida somewhat interesting. But, if you're only looking to put in 1 or 2 Giants into your lineups, Matt Breida could be one of those if he fits, if the salary fits. It just depends on the build that you end up with and what your needs are after you build. Darius Slayton, he's the guy that's going to be hurt by Buffalo's defense and the just 6 iteration of the offensive line that the Giants are rolling out this week on top of a backup quarterback. They're not going to have time to get it to Darius Slayton. I would be more focused on the short passing game tonight. Tyler Bass, he's got a potential tonight, but I think with the Buffalo side, they're not going to have too much trouble scoring touchdowns. The Giants defense has not been horrible. They haven't been horrible tonight. So they got that going for them at least. Let's take a look at the defense here. Buffalo's defense has allowed 26.5 points to running back, and Buffalo's New York's defense has allowed 29.6, but they've eliminated basically wide receivers. Wide receivers against the Giants have gotten 8 points, 13 points, and tight ends have gotten 9 points. That's 13 points for the slots, 8 points for wideouts. So New York's defense has been good at stopping the wide receivers, but that might be a Gamescript thing because looking at this 30 points a game that they're allowing to running backs tells me that games are getting out of hand quick and teams are turning to the run game. That's basically our Gamescript right there for tonight. The game can get out of hand and they could turn to the run game pretty quickly. So that's something that we need to keep in mind when we're deciding on the passing game options to put in for the Buffalo side. WAN'DALE Robinson, he is the other guy that I'd be interested in on the New York side, but I'm not interested in putting in really, more than 2 Giants in any lineup, and even 2 is a stretch. I think you're going to see a higher percentage of 5-1 builds than we see in a long time. And I think the 70% of the field is going to be using 5-1 and 4-2 builds towards the Buffalo side. And it's really hard to get different than that without lighting your money on fire, honestly. Because Wan'Dale Robinson, look at this fantasy output by him: 7 points, 10 points, 6 points. He's been back for a few weeks now. He's had 6, 6, and 5 for his targets, and he hasn't really done too much because his ADOT is so low. But a low ADOT is going to favor him in a matchup like this where the quarterback's going to be trying to get rid of the ball quick. So Wan'Dale Robinson is interesting. Graham Gano, I'm not really interested in. I don't think that they're going to be in scoring position very often tonight. And Graham Gano, like they're going to, when they are in scoring position, it might take them towards the end of the first half to get in scoring position. And by that point, the game could be like out of hand already. So I wouldn't look for them to be trying too hard to score field goals tonight, just based on the game script. So Dalton Kincaid is questionable. He's got a concussion. The fact that he's not ruled out yet, I mean, that's good. Brightwell, questionable as well. What's Brightwell's latest? Questionable after sitting out practice Thursday. Brightwell was a limited participant on Friday. So that gives him hope for coming in tonight. So that's good on Brightwell. Kincaid is listed as questionable. Let's see if he has any updates. Kincaid and Knox weren't able to advance beyond limited participation in practice this week. So they've still on the questionable side of things. Could be game time decisions. We'll keep an eye on the news on these tight ends here. But regardless, New York is doing pretty good against tight ends, allowing 9 points a game to DraftKings points a game to tight ends. And, I don't think we're going to need to go there with tight ends tonight anyways. So, keep that in mind. And they're not really doing it, that they're in a timeshare anyways, and they're each scoring maybe 5 points a game. So I don't have any interest. I'd rather go with a kicker or a defense at that point, as opposed to try to jam in these tight ends into my lineup the way that they've been doing. Or Latavius Murray, a guy that can come in and mop up the garbage time. Let's take a look at what he's done. What did he do in that Miami game where they won 48-20? He had 4 attempts for 32 yards. He had 2 targets for 24 yards, 7.6 fantasy points. So not really impressive there. Other than that, he has 1 game where he put up over 10 fantasy points. But Latavius Murray in a blowout script is someone who's interesting. What did James Cook do in that Miami game? Did he get working all throughout the game? He had 12 attempts for 29 yards, and he had 1 target where he got 49 yards. So he put up 14.7 fantasy points. Really just wasn't a factor. I wonder who got the rushing work when that game, maybe the game didn't get out of control until later on. So that's why these running backs weren't too involved with it. So we'll take a look at who else here. Matt Breida, not really interested in Matt Breida, but he's in the same situation as Saquon Barkley, a guy that could get the dump offs in limited time to throw for the quarterback here. And he had 1 target, 5 targets, 3 targets in the game that Saquon was out. 11 points and 13 points in those games as well. So Breida is on the short list of like the one or 1 or 2 guys that we would want to put into a lineup. So Breida makes a cut there. Darius Slayton, we already went through all those guys. The Giants defense, not interested there. It's going to be a likely blowout. Paris Campbell, not really interested there. He's not going to get enough work with WAN'DALE being in the game. And if he does get work, it's just in relieving WAN'DALE. So I'm not really interested in Paris Campbell. What did he do since WAN'DALE's been back? He's got 2 targets. He had 5 targets and 6 targets in those matchups against San Francisco and Seattle, but he didn't do anything with them. His highest output is 8 fantasy points. So seeing a situation similar to those Kansas City Chiefs receivers, not really interested in any of those guys. Damian Harris, what did he do in that Miami game? 6 attempts, 29 yards. Yeah, no passing yards, three points in the output. So nothing too much with Damian Harris there. Eric Gray, let's see. Eric Gray had 12 attempts. I guess Barkley was out in that game, and that must have been after Brightwell got out. So he was the backup, I guess, for Breida. So he got 12 attempts, only 3.6 points with those. Jalen Hyatt, I like Jalen Hyatt, but I don't like him in this game just because they're not going to have time to throw to him, and they don't throw to him anyways. He's had 5 targets all season, and they're not going to be in a position, I don't think, to get it to Jalen Hyatt. But if you want to take a Hail Mary, he's only $1,200. He's got the upside. So keep him in mind for Hail Marys. Khalil Shakir has been a disappointment this season. 1 target. He hasn't got more than a target in a game. Not interested in Shakir, but Hardy is interesting because Hardy, you know what, like Hardy and Shakir might get work if it ends up, being a blowout and they put out, the backups in the second half. So, I don't know that I would write them off completely, but I would lean Hardy before I lean towards Shakir as far as guys that could, make a dent in an optimal lineup. Hardy got 8.2 points against Jacksonville, DraftKings points, and he also had a fumble, so that's not good. Shakir, like we already went over him, he had only 1 target. Sherfield's the other guy that splits with those dudes, and 1 target, 3 targets, 3 targets. Not really used too much, but Sherfield, in a garbage time situation, but I don't even like him there. He's $200. Other than that, I don't see a whole lot in the dumpster dive here. Yeah, not a lot of scrubs in this game that are worth even looking at. So let's go and take a look at what we can do with a lineup build. I think the most popular anytime you see one of these builds is to put in Josh Allen at the captain, which makes sense to me just based on his output so far. I think where we go from there is going to be interesting because we're going to need salary relief. I want to make sure that I'm getting James Cook in there at least. If this is a chalky build, people are going to try to jam in Stephon Diggs as well. So we got Josh Allen throwing to Stephon Diggs and James Cook getting some touchdowns and getting some of that garbage work in these situations. Like maybe I want to look for a little bit of salary relief here, and maybe I want to go with WAN'DALE as my giant guy. As I was talking about earlier, they're going to be only able to really get it to the short passes in this game. So let's put WAN'DALE in there as our giant. I mentioned I like Deontay Hardy, so let's put him in there. That leaves us with 4,200. That leaves us with this range of tight ends and Brightwell. I don't want to put a second giant in this build. So maybe I would put in, Latavius Murray would be interesting to get a second running back in there in a game with a heavy blowout potential. You could go with Jalen Hyatt in a build like this, if you want to take like a crapshoot. But I would prefer to go with someone safer, like one of these tight ends if they're playing. Keep an eye on the injury status of these tight ends because, like them or Latavius Murray are probably the best options in a build like this. So this is probably a chalky build tonight. So I want to go a little bit different, but first let's do a Diggs build, and let's do it a little bit different. Let's do Diggs without Josh Allen. Let's say that Diggs is racking up PPR points and maybe he gets a touchdown, but James Cook has the ability to outscore Josh Allen. Let's put Cook in there, mopping up all the the yardage and getting those touchdowns maybe in the early game or in the second half. But him and Diggs are controlling this game, and Josh Allen doesn't need to run in this game because they have a comfortable lead, and he abandons the pass pretty early in this game. And let's put in Saquon Barkley. Let's say Saquon Barkley has no limitations tonight, or like not a lot of limitations tonight. And he's a guy that could outscore Josh Allen if Josh Allen is having a limited workload with a lead. So if I have Josh Diggs, Cook, and Barkley, let's go a little bit towards the salary relief. We can put in, let's see, let's put in Deontay Harris in this, or where's Hardy? Yeah, let's put in Hardy in this one too. I hate using these sub 1,000 guys, but like in this game, if we're trying to jam in these studs, we're not really left with much choice. So if Diggs and Cook are in there, maybe we put in Bass in this one to help take more scoring opportunities away from Josh Allen. And then we're left with 6K. It gives us options like Slayton, Robinson. Wan'Dale Robinson's the guy I'd probably go in this situation. Don't like Gano. I'd go Robinson, or maybe one of these Buffalo tight ends. Just based on like guys that have the most upside in this situation. Maybe Latavius Murray, but probably one of these guys. So if we were building with a James Cook captain build, which I like to go, James Cook is going to give us some salary relief. Let's say that Stephon Diggs is still getting that work in the passing game, but Josh Allen is not converting on touchdowns or something. And he's not needed because Cook and Diggs have helped to take a significant lead. Diggs is setting up Cooks for those, maybe like 20 yards out, like so he can rush it in without having to worry about Latavius Murray stealing his work. And Cook ends up somehow being the captain, and Diggs, plays a major role in the offense without, too major a role that he needs to be the captain. We could put in Barkley in this situation too. Let's say Barkley's their entire offense tonight. This situation, I don't mind putting in a second giant. We could look at Waller and we could look at WAN'DALE, but let's look at Waller. Let's look at Waller in this matchup. We put him in there. It leaves us with 2,800. If we put in WAN'DALE, leaves us with 4,200 per remaining guy. If we put in Bass at that point, that leaves us with 3,600. We could put in. It looks like we're getting the same group of guys. You could put in Jalen Hyatt in that situation, but we already got two Giants. It would make you different, but let's see if we took out Diggs and we put in Gabe Davis instead. If we take out Diggs and put in Gabe Davis, what options does that leave us with? It leaves us with 8K at this point. 8K is enough to get Waller in there. If we wanted to take out Robinson and put in Waller, that leaves us with 5,200. That puts us in the range to get in these, like a WAN'DALE, Dalton Kincaid, Dalton Knox. I would probably stay away from putting a third giant in this lineup because they're not going to be putting up enough points, I don't think. And I just would not go more than two giants. But if you wanted to, you would get different, because I think that the at least ETRs is projecting like 15% 3-3 builds. So 15% 3-3 builds would get you different from the field. So maybe that wouldn't be such a bad thing. But the Giants, I just like, they just don't move the ball on offense. They just suck. And it's like maybe Tyrod Taylor will be different, and maybe you'll have more luck than we've seen from Daniel Jones. He is playing with Dayball, who they were together in Buffalo, and he's familiar with the system, and he's playing against his old team. It is a revenge game. So, maybe you can build yourself a little narrative there. If we wanted to take Barkley out and maybe put in Josh Allen in this situation, since we don't have Diggs, that would leave us with 3,400. That leaves us with Hardy again. Jalen Hyatt would be an option. There's options there. Like, what if we put in Barkley over Waller? We can't do that. So let's go back over to having Waller in this lineup. So, in this situation, maybe there's limitations to Barkley. We can't really get Breida in this lineup. You're just not really left with scrubby options. Jalen Hyatt's got the most upside out of all these options, and the fact that we have Waller in there, he's the only giant in there right now. I don't mind putting Jalen Hyatt in this build. Deontay Hardy is another option who should stay pretty much in the game, even in a blowout situation. What did he do against Miami? Miami, he got 2 targets. Like, he just doesn't get enough targets, but he is, technically the wide receiver 3 in this offense. So, I mean, he has the ability to get the opportunities. So we'll see what happens with him tonight. But this is just playing around. I'll put out a video later on today after I've thought this through a little bit more. But this gives you an idea of the type of situation that we're dealing with tonight. There's not a whole lot to like about this slate. I don't like the blowout games, really. Like, I like the games that are going to be projected closer. Those are the ones that are easier to, at least for me, to build game scripts around. But with a blowout game, you know what? Let's put in the Bills D. Let's put in the Bills D in this build and see if that helps out at all. I'll take Davis out for now. I'll put in the Bills D. Or maybe I take out. No, I don't want to take out Josh Allen. If I put in the Bills D there, that leaves me with 4,600. That leaves me with I can get at least Robinson in that situation. But you're giving up the upside of Gabe Davis for the Bills D. But at the same time, we don't know how long that starting offense, those starting receivers, are going to be active in this game. It could be like a 1-quarter thing, like where let's say we go back to Diggs in this build. That leaves us with 5,200. Still WAN'DALE. I mean, you could build a lineup like this, with WAN'DALE and Waller as your 2 giants, and then just rotate out Diggs and Allen. I think that would work. Bills D. If you wanted to put Robinson, let's take out the Bills D and put Robinson in there to see what we would have. 7,200. It doesn't leave us with much because we got this range of scrubby quarterbacks. So I don't want Isaiah Hodgins. Bills D would probably be the way to go there. But what if we put in Bills D over the kicker? That leaves us with 5,400. Just leaves us with the kicker again and those tight ends and stuff. So just play around with it. Like, that gives some ideas of directions you can go. Make sure you're building your game script around your captain. With Cook in the captain, you can foresee a blowout. In a blowout situation, I don't necessarily need to have Diggs and Allen in that lineup. If you want to go with Diggs or Allen, maybe you put in Latavius Murray in there with Cook, or maybe just Latavius Murray in there. Maybe Latavius Murray's the one who's getting those touchdowns. Let's try that out. Let's put Diggs in there. So let's put Diggs in there. Let's put Latavius Murray instead of Cook. Because with this game script, the Cook will probably be pretty chalky anyways. We got the Bills D. This enables us to, put in Tyrod Taylor if you wanted to. You could also put Cook in this lineup. I don't hate putting Cook in this lineup if Cook is racking up a whole bunch of rushing yards, and then like Murray is poaching those touchdowns. That would keep Cook out of the captain. Let's say Diggs had limited work, but I mean, I guess it doesn't. Yeah, he had limited work that keeps Allen out of the captain, but he has enough work to put up the PPR points and put him in the captain spot. And then on the other side, Waller and Robinson are trying to play catch up throughout the whole game. This build you could also put. I wouldn't put Gabe Davis in this build because we don't have Josh Allen in it. If you wanted to swap out Waller with Barkley in this build, that leaves you with options to put in, Breida. No, that would be a third giant. I mean, you could put Bass in that build. Bass would make sense in that build. With keeping Cook out. Maybe Cook is getting kept out because Murray and Bass are just soaking up all that red zone work, while Diggs gets them to the red zone, and then they're either kicking field goals or Murray is poaching those touchdowns, and Josh Allen isn't getting the touchdowns, James Cook isn't getting the touchdowns, and then maybe the Bills D has poached possession away from them with a pick six or something like that, or a scoop and score after a fumble on Tyrod Taylor. I could see that happening. Just generally giving the Bills good enough field position so that like Murray and Murray can get those like at least one short yardage touchdown. But just play around with your game script there. Try to build a story around what these guys could do, and hopefully tomorrow's game is better than tonight's game from a game script perspective. But subscribe to the page. Give a like to the video. If I get 15 likes, I'll put out a short video later on today. And good luck, everybody.